Good evening and welcome to the December 8th special call meeting of the East Point City Council. Madam Deputy City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Shropshire. Present. Councilmember Friedley. Here. Councilmember Atkins will not be in attendance. Councilmember Ziegler. Present. Councilmember Cummings. Present. Councilmember Mitchell. Present. Councilmember Butler. Here. Councilmember Martin Rogers. Present. Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. This evening, Attorney Charles Johnson will be standing in for our city attorney till she arrives, and is also a part of the TAD presentation. I am going to read the public hearing rule into the record before I ask for the motion to open the first public hearing. Rule 29, the public hearing shall be advertised as per ordinance. The presiding officer will call for a motion to open and close the hearing. Those in favor of the subject will speak first for a total of 15 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Those, oops, I had to turn mine. Those who oppose the subject will then speak for a total of 15 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Speakers may give a total of 3 minutes to another speaker after all those present have had an opportunity to speak. Residents will be given first priority to speak. After all residents have been given an opportunity to speak, non-residents may speak. By majority vote, the council may increase the total time for each side of the subject to a total of 30 minutes per side. Each side will be given the same amount of time. Speakers must adhere to the rules of decorum. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing on the proposed redevelopment plan for proposed tax allocation district?
So moved.
TAD South.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we will open the public hearing first with a presentation regarding TAD South. Attorney Johnson, I'll turn it over to you for you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Tonight, we are having a public hearing on, two public hearings on two redevelopment plans proposing the creation of two tax allocation districts. There will be no vote tonight on a resolution to adopt any of these redevelopment plans, but the Redevelopment Powers Law requires that the redevelopment plan be considered in a public hearing pursuant to notice, and the notice has occurred. And the redevelopment plan has been prepared and has been submitted to the city, and Mr. Koski is here to take you through. Thank
you, Attorney Johnson. Mr. Koski, you can come on up. And since we have two separate hearings, I'm not sure if the presentation does TAD South, TAD North. If so, that would be great because we could just stop at TAD South. If not, we'll probably have to go through the overview twice, but go ahead.
Got it. Well, I'll focus a little bit on the overview this time around. I won't need to next time around. So just as a review, and we can keep talking next time around, but just as a review, this issue of TADs was first discussed with y'all in end of October. Attorney Johnson had reached out to me sometime in mid-October to talk about TADs. KB Advisory Group, of which I am president and owner, we write TAD plans, redevelopment plans for TADs around the state. So this is not unusual for us to get that call. It was unusual for us to get it that late in the game. So we're on a fast track here is the reason I'm bringing this up. So we were here on November 3rd, and then on November 10th, I made another presentation. These are just some maps that you saw to represent some of the things that we discussed when I was here at that time. This is the process that we're on. You can see the big arrow pointing to tonight's public hearing. This is per the state law, so you can see the idea is that the plans, one or both of the TAD plans are approved to set up the TADs, and at that point, when you send the letter to the Department of Revenue, the TAD begins, they certify the TAD, and the base value is locked in. We're trying to do that before the end of the year, which is why we're on a fast track, to get the base value locked in before the end of 2025. If you don't do it now and you pass the TAD plans in January, the base value of the TADs don't get locked in till December of next year. So that's why it's kind of end of the year hurry. We could do it in January, but you're kind of quote unquote losing a whole year of base value. So one of the things we talked about when we were here before is that you have one TAD, it's TAD number 2. You obviously had TAD number 1. There was the Camp Creek Parkway TAD that was super successful. You retired that TAD. This is the TAD that you currently have. We talked about this. I just want to point your attention to one of those bullet points in the middle, where this TAD that you currently have accounts for 5.7% of the overall city tax digest. That matters because state law says you can only go to 10% of all your collective TADs. This one is currently, as of today, 5.7%. It will likely move up. It's been growing in value by a little bit, so next year it will be a little bit bigger as a percent of your TAD percentage, overall percent of your digest. So if you remember this discussion, this was a map that we showed. We said at one point there was discussion we could have 2 TADs. There's 2 priority areas, 2 areas that have vacant industrial buildings and land. And so it was determined at some point in this process, let's go for 2 TADs, but could we fit 2 TADs under that 10% cap? One of the reasons it said let's go for 2 TADs, because in both areas are sites that have been identified in previous plans that y'all have approved, or this body has approved. And also the Owens, Illinois redevelopment site is down there near the Willingham LCI study area. So that made sense as one plan. Up to the north, Sylvan, Oakley area, as we're calling it, has also sites that were in the Economic Development Strategic Plan, and that area also has empty and vacant lots, empty buildings, etc. So we also did some exploration of other sites that might fit into these TADs. So we are bringing tonight 2 plans that are to be considered separate. They are mutually exclusive of each other, but if you were to pass them both, this is kind of how the numbers shake out. And again, there's lots of numbers. I know we're on a time crunch, I'd be happy to go through any numbers you want to, but just kind of pointing out the red numbers in the middle, just that 10% cap. If you were to pass both of these plans, you would be at 9.3% of your overall digest, so that would leave you a little bit of room for additional opportunities for other parcels that we'll talk about in a second. So that's a lot. That's basically the background that I'm going to go over that kind of speaks to both of these plans that are up for consideration. And then I'll go into I'll go into TAD 3 next, but just so you know what's being considered, if and when you do put this on the agenda to vote, one or both of these plans, you are basically setting, as I said, the base year value within the TAD boundary. You're setting the boundary and the base year. That's all you're doing. You're not committing to any projects getting money, if you will. You're not committing to any projects getting zoning approvals by any way. You're not including the county and the schools' millage rates. That's very important, which we can talk about more, but it's important to know that you're setting up this TAD and you're only putting in your East Point millage into it. And you can see the other things that you're not doing here, including you're not raising taxes, you're not messing with people's tax bills. If they're in the TAD, if they're not in the TAD, doesn't really matter in terms of the tax bill that they will receive. So I think that's important. You're not raising the taxes because you're in a TAD or not in a TAD, based on the millage rates. So again, if you were to pass these plans, you become, as this body becomes the redevelopment agent, and you get to control these TADs, or you can pass that power off to someone in the city, which again, specific places in the city you could pass that off to if you wanted to. Okay, now, these are the covers and the table of contents of the two plans we've written in this time frame that we've talked about. Okay, so we have what we are proposing, or not, well, we're offering to you these plans that can be adopted based on what we hear from you tonight and what you hear from the public. These can be adopted, these can be modified, these can be not modified, not adopted. You choose your own adventure from here. But you have two plans that could be adopted before the end of the year. TAD 3 we'll talk about, proposed TAD 3. You see it over here, you see this table of contents. Table of contents is exactly the same, both plans, because we follow the law. There's one law, Title 36, Chapter 44 speaks only to TADs, and that's the law that we know best. We're not lawyers, but we know that law, and this table of contents follows the law. So, quickly, to give you an idea of what's in this TAD, we're not going through all pages. I got about 5 slides to get through here. Just if you bear with me, this gives you kind of an overview. There's an executive summary, so when you read the plan, you read the first 7 pages, and then you start over again with the full plan. So we kind of put the executive summary. You can read the executive summary, get the big ideas. The full plan is there for you right behind it. You can see the vision for this plan. Again, this is largely based on things that we know largely have been expressed in the Willingham Corridor LCI study, as well as things that we've heard, again, through conversations with you, through conversations when we did the economic development plan with y'all, things that were priorities in this area. So here's the map, the final map. It is also known that the public right-of-way that connects the parcels is in the TAD as well. So the one you can see to the very south is Bobby Brown Parkway. That would be considered in the TAD, connecting that vacant parcel down there to those other parcels in what we call the hotel district. Not all of the hotels are in this TAD. Again, we're bumping up against that 10% cap, and so therefore you can't just put everything you want in there. So we were making decisions mostly following the guidance that we heard from y'all from the beginning of vacant land, vacant buildings, declining buildings, buildings that need to be redeveloped of some sort. So a lot of the hotels are, maybe not perfect, but they're pretty not going away. They're not going to get redeveloped anytime soon necessarily. It would have been better to put some of those in there, but we had to make decisions about what went in and what went out. So the lower value properties, the more likely to be redeveloped properties made it in, and the vision of the Willingham LCI and the opportunity to use this TAD on Owens, Illinois site is what guided how this boundary came together. Again, it can be refined. We don't have a lot of time to make a lot of changes, but we're open to, this can be changed, but this is the idea so far. Again, this is grounds for exercise of the powers. It is considered under this specific law, under very specific circumstances laid out in the law. It is determined that it's blighted and distressed. It is determined that it is a deteriorating area, not the entire area, but the areas within the TAD boundaries meet the definition of these things per the law. And so, again, these are kind of the numbers, the base value. You can see it's about 230 acres in total. It's about $77 million worth of real estate per the tax assessor. So this is the amount of money, quote unquote, that the tax collections that would be frozen, and you would continue to get this amount of value off of these properties. It's the growth in the properties that would be used for redevelopment. growth in the values in this property that would be used for redevelopment. That's the whole point of the TAD, that you can pour then the increment growth back into this area to pay for infrastructure of redevelopment, et cetera. So that is the long and the short of the boundaries. Within the plan itself, you can again see you have to do this idea of what might go on these parcels if they get redeveloped. This is a total planner's, educated guess, frankly, of what might go on this site, because we have to, per the law, do this type of forecast. So this type of development could go into this plan. It's really for illustrative purposes only, but this could be the type of redevelopment that you see. And again, this is a plan, this is a concept that is in your plan right now to be approved and considered as a illustrative idea of what might happen at Sylvan Road. It's in the plan. Because it's in the plan is only to say this is the type of a development that could go there. It's not to say this is what, has to go there. But by saying this is the type, you're saying this is generally, we're saying this site is a priority for development of something like this. So that's the kind of, I was going to say long and the short, but it's not all that short, but that's the big ideas of TAD 3.
All right, thank you so much. I'll now turn to the public to see if anyone would like to come and speak. Madam Deputy City Clerk, we need 2 timers. I need one for 15 minutes, and then each speaker has up to 3 minutes. And so I need you to keep a running timer as well as an individual timer for speakers. At this time, is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak in favor of the proposed redevelopment plan for tax allocation district number 3, Willingham Innovation District, is indicated also as TAD South? Anyone who would like to speak in favor of tax allocation district number 3? Anyone who would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone who would like to speak against the redevelopment plan for, proposed redevelopment plan for tax allocation district number 3? Anyone who would like to speak against the proposed redevelopment plan for tax allocation district number 3? Anyone who would like to speak against? Seeing that there's no speakers at this time, are there any comments from council prior to closing the public hearing?
So moved.
No, before we close, can you withdraw that motion for me?
Oh,
Just to make sure. You'll withdraw.
yes.
Okay, motion was withdrawn. At this time on the agenda tonight, all we have are the 2 public hearings, so if there's any discussion, we can take them on each TAD redevelopment proposal before the hearing is closed. And so any comments from or discussion from council on what is indicated on the agenda as East Point Innovation TAD South and presented as tax allocation district number 3, Willingham Innovation District? Councilmember Martin Rogers.
Yes, I have a question for the presenter, please. And my question is just simple. For those individuals that may live in our city that may not be familiar with the TAD or the tax allocation district or what it really does or the benefits of it for a city, can you just explain the purpose of the TAD and its benefits to a city?
Yes, ma'am. And I would also say that, the presentations that were made before were much more focused on what is this type of question. So I'm always happy to go back and review those presentations that were made as I was talking about earlier. The idea, so a TAD is an economic development tool. It's in the toolbox, right? And so, again, as a consultant that works all over the state of Georgia doing economic development strategic plans like we did for y'all and all sorts of things throughout Georgia, we see successful cities with full economic development toolboxes. And there's different things that you can do in different places. But the one tool that is most successful in getting things redeveloped, going from one troubled area to something economically viable, in Georgia, the one tool that allows us to do big things like that is pretty much TAD. And variations of TAD, but pretty much this is the tool to do big things. The cool thing about TAD is you can also do little things with it too, but we can get into all that later. But you can do a lot of things via economic development with TAD. So when a city passes a TAD, you're saying this is our economic development priority area. We want to give this area special attention because we think this area has more potential for economic development. Largely that means we can get more property taxes from this area to help fund the rest of the city. But you have to focus that attention through this TAD to get, often is how cities are doing this. So what's happening is that when you pass a TAD, all the property value that you're currently collecting from within the boundaries continues to flow to your general fund. The rest of the action happens as the tax is collected and put into a special fund. Any growth from here on out, while the TAD is in place, the growth in property taxes flows to the special fund. Ultimately, the idea is that special fund comes back right into the TAD to help pay for infrastructure. So it focuses growth. It puts property taxes where they are being created through redevelopment to pay for the infrastructure to get that redevelopment done. So that's basically the kind of philosophy, the idea behind the TAD, is that it focuses infrastructure and gives infrastructure a tool to get there, right? The TAD helps infrastructure get put in place.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
came in late, sorry.
Councilmember Freely.
Thank you. Just a quick question, mainly for people who are listening. We're talking about two TADs, essentially. Can you explain briefly how they are either sort of related, unrelated, tied, not tied? Are they sort of mutually beneficial? Do they go as a pair? Just
Right.
talk a little bit.
It's a great question. Thank you for asking. It's a good clarification question. So I'm going to go back to this map that isn't exactly the TADs, but the north and the south TADs are basically represented here in blue and purple, just for an illustrative discussion here to say that these two TADs are both focused similarly on old industrial areas general focus is old industrial areas in the city that need some attention. They're both different, and so particularly because the south one, the Willingham area, has a LCI plan, a very specific vision, and because there's Owens, Illinois site that we know people have been looking at, we know exactly what that area wants to be. It also has the hotel district, so we're sort of lumping the hotel district in to say, look, we've got this tool for this area that we know what it wants to be. We have a plan. We have multiple plans. The thing is, two things why the north side is not connected to the south side. One is there isn't a similar vision, right? We wouldn't want to apply the Willingham LCI vision to the Sylvan Oakley area. We didn't think. Now, you could if you wanted to, but we didn't think it was appropriate to say whatever's happened in Willingham should happen up here. So we thought these should be really two discussions, two plans, two sort of sets of objectives. And that was the kind of, again, philosophy behind it. Now, technically, because of the way TAD 2 is drawn, you technically can't connect these TADs. You basically, if you're going to have a TAD for Willingham Drive, it's got to be this southeast quadrant of the city, because the TAD can't cross the red line. That red line is your current TAD. So TADs can't cross streams. A parcel or a piece of right-of-way can only be in one TAD at a time. So you've got the south TAD is the south TAD, and then the north TAD is basically the north TAD. It's locked in. The rest of the area around there is not in. Most of it's residential areas, so the TADs are the TADs. So they are, I would say, very mutually exclusive. They don't have to be passed together by any means. And I will also say that the North TAD doesn't have an LCI plan, so we have envisioned what might happen there, but there hasn't been a approved plan that told us what that ought to be. We're just sort of going on what we think, based on our economic development work. And there are some parcels that were identified in that plan up here. So that one is, I would say, less defined because it didn't have a LCI plan. I will also take the opportunity to say, to answer a couple other questions that have been asked. The names are not, I mean, those are our recommendations. They can absolutely be changed if you don't like the names. We're not married to those names by any means, but they seem to work. But if you have an issue, now would be, if you don't like the names and you pass these TADs, then this will be the name, number one. Number two, there are other areas of cities that I have pointed out, and Councilman Butler, I know you were asking about some other parcels in other parts of the city. They could not be attached, quote unquote, to either of these TADs again because of that red line. So what we've done is we said, if you want to pass both of these TADs, you can. You've got two plans. They're both legal and ready to go. You only then would have less than 1% for the rest of your TADs if you wanted to do more. You would have the ability to do some parcels, strip areas, strip malls that might need redevelopment along Washington Road. One of the other parcels that have been discussed is already in TAD 2, so you've got some room to do more TADs if you wanted to down the road, if you were to pass these. But there had been questions about what about other parcels that aren't in these TADs. Most of those are answered just to say they couldn't be because the way these are sort of blocked in.
Thank you. Can you just give an update or tell exactly where the south and the north side is? So I think I heard you say one is on Illinois. Just kind of give like what's around.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So if you look at this, TAD 3 is actually the one over here on the right. So this is what we're calling, sorry, my right, your left. Yeah. So, all right. So these are the two TADs. Let me go back to a better map so you can see it. All right. So the Willingham Corridor LCI study takes it. This is, you can see on this map here where it mentions Willingham. So that's the corridor, Willingham. It's mostly north of Willingham up to Central, okay? And Central Avenue is up there, and then there's the SA recycling site. And I don't know if this will pop up here, but oh yeah, here it is. So this is SA recycling as I understand it. So this is Willingham here. Sorry, it's behind you. This is Willingham. So this has kind of been the focus area of the LCI area. This is a site that the LCI said should be redeveloped. This is the SA, this is Central. I forgot the name of this street. It'll come to me. But that's SA Recycling. Owens, Illinois site. Sylvan Road is right here. Is that right? Yeah. Sylvan Road comes down here. And then the last kind of landmark is this is what we would call the hotel district all along here, along 85. So the hotels you can see in East Point along 85, not a lot of them are in, but these sites right there at the interchange are in, and this is a vacant site down there in the hotel land. So that's TAD 3, the Willingham Innovation District. And then here's TAD 4 as proposed. Again, this is Sylvan. So Sylvan this is now, let me just back up. All right, so now I know it changes colors, I apologize. This is purple, so now this is TAD 4. This was I just described TAD 3, all of this. This is now TAD 4, purple, but it's about to turn yellow. All right, so here's TAD 4. The idea is and so it's called the Sylvan Oakley. So Sylvan and Oakley. And again, this is, you can see big, large industrial users. There's actually some publicly held parcels over here, railroad parcels, tax exempt parcels mostly, railroad tax exempt parcels. These are big boxes. So there's definitely some opportunity in here. This area was identified in the Strategic Economic Development Strategic Plan. Not all of these buildings are empty or going to be redeveloped now or in the next couple of years, but you never know over time. This is a heavy industrial area on kind of a gateway to your city. So Tri-Cities High School is right here, by the way, right? So Tri-Cities High School. So that's kind of the southwestern boundary of this, right up to the city limits by the MARTA station, the Lakewood MARTA station. So basically the area to the east between the Lakewood MARTA station and Tri-Cities High School.
Okay, and thank you for that. So how do other areas get tagged? Because what I'm hearing is the tag is in two areas, south and north, but they're both in Ward B.
I honestly don't have a great sense of the ward boundaries. I apologize for that. So I would say that knowing your city pretty well, but you all know it, you live here, you work it, so I could be wrong, but having worked here for the past year and a half, I would say that these are probably your two most likely areas for TAD. Not to say these are the most important areas in the city, but just the way a TAD works, these would, I would say, fit the profile. There are other parcels called along Washington Avenue that I could see needing a TAD. I see this parcel over here where they treat the the utility poles. That could be a TAD someday, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of other places that could be TADs. This is the area that has been sort of identified because of the LCI plan, if nothing else, as an area. Plus, the private sector has told us, the private sector is telling y'all that this is a site that they're interested in, but they need something like a TAD to help them, is what I understand.
To build it up.
Say again, sorry. Yeah. So again, it's up to you. You could have a little bit more TADs elsewhere. If you don't think these are the right TADs, then you don't have to pass one, or you could choose one or two, or if these are different priorities than you think the city ought to be choosing, then there are other options. But this is sort of what we think is the lowest hanging fruit, if you ask me.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. You did mention we have, 1% left if we...
A little bit under, yes. About 0.7% to
0.7.
be precise, yes.
How much do you think, you did also mention the Washington Road Plaza earlier, do you think that would be enough? to do anything with that?
I do. I mean, based on our calculations, we looked at, I think it was 3 parcels on Washington Road, kind of as examples of what we thought might be, you were pointing us in the right direction of what we thought could be parcels on Washington Road. Then this is one we brought up earlier at a meeting. Again, here's your TAD 2. This is where they treat the utility poles. This site right here would be 1/10% right here, right? So this speaks to that. So again, there's not a ton of space, but I think call it 3 parcels on Washington Road would be doable in 2026 if you wanted to.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple brief. Mr. Attorney Johnson, Mr. Koski mentioned that the name isn't relevant now, or it can be decided. When does that decision have to be made as it relates to the name of the TAS?
So when you all vote, you will vote on a resolution which will adopt a name. And so whatever the name is in the resolution is the name of the TAD. And so if you want, there's plenty of time for y'all to decide on some other name other than the one that's the ones that have been proposed so far.
Thank you.
And if I could just add from a logistical standpoint, so again, these TADs are ready to go. I have copies of them. I assume there's copies available to the public. They could be voted on. If you have changes.
You mean the redevelopment plans?
Sorry.
You said the TAD, you mean the redevelopment?
The redevelopment plan, sorry, the redevelopment, thank you. If you want any changes, we can make changes. It's just that we would need at least 24 hours before you vote on it, just because we got to do some work to change things. So if you have any changes that you are decided that need to be made, including the name, we need to know ASAP, but at least 24 hours before you vote on it. And that goes through the city attorney, is the way I understand it.
I think you raised a good point, and of course, one person can't direct that change, but we are having this discussion during the public hearing. And so the name you actually have it as TAD 3. The one reference is TAD South. You've been talking about TAD South and TAD North on a couple of these slides. You have that one as Willingham Innovation District, TAD number 3, right? I think it would be helpful in this discussion if people have different ideas for names to go ahead and share those so that consensus could be gathered as to how we move forward versus, one of us can't direct the name of it. Is everybody, I know there was concern raised about whether or not it indicates the area, so this one indicates Willingham. Does anybody have any thoughts on another name? Once. Willingham Innovation, TAD number 3, Willingham Innovation District. So it speaks to the Willingham.
The only idea behind having innovation in there, it was a name that we had heard in the discussion from the time we were brought in, but we thought it was useful here because you have a Willingham LCI district, and this is, intended to help you implement the Willingham LCI district, but to differentiate it from that plan, we're calling this the Willingham Innovation District. Maybe it's confusing, I don't know, but that was the idea.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. So I know we're talking about the names, but if you did the north and south both combined, I know north is, I know south is going to be the Willingham.
Mm-hmm.
The north is what kind of?
We're calling it the Sylvan Oakley District, just because those are two.
So if you put those two
streets.
together, is
We couldn't have one TAD that includes both of those because of the boundary
I know,
issue.
okay, because it has to
Yeah.
connect.
If it'd be easy enough, I wish we could.
I know
That'd be
you
easy.
mentioned it before, so.
Yeah.
The problem is the TAD number 2, the Cleveland Avenue Corridors TAD, is in the middle.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because,
one TAD can't cross over the other.
right.
Okay. So if you call
Oh,
it
sorry.
Willingham Innovation, and then I had a concern I know we talked about those plazas, those 3 areas on Washington Road.
Mm-hmm.
Could they be inclusive in that as well? Because I know where the Sammy Cheesecake, that plaza.
Yeah, you can't get Washington Road in here, again, because of the way TAD 2 is drawn and the way the city boundaries are. So the black is the city limits
Right.
and the red is your TAD boundary. So
So
Washington
we
is.
can't cross any of those?
They can't cross any of those. So that's the reason we can't put them together. It's also the reason we can't go to the other side of City Hall, for example, to pick up Washington Road parcels over there within these TADs. You could do a Washington Road TAD, just as an example of any other TAD that you could do. as long as it stayed under that 10%
Under the
cap.
10%.
And our estimation is if you looked at 3 of the most likely parcels on Washington Road, you wanted a Washington Road TAD, you could do that next year in a different TAD plan.
Okay.
But it can't be part of one, it can't be
this,
part
it
of
can't be
either
a,
of these,
Can't be
yeah.
a part of Willingham, okay.
Just because of the way that's the law.
I get it, you
yeah,
can't cross those
yeah,
boundaries. Okay, I'm tracking.
Them's the rules, as they say.
Got it, we don't want to do that. Okay, thank you, I yield.
Okay, any other ideas on names or discussions before I entertain a motion to close the public hearing? Second. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Next up, can I get a motion to open the public hearing on the redevelopment plan for a proposed tax allocation district, TAD North? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing is now open. You can, Mr. Kioski.
So may I make, I want to make a comment about process before Mr. Kioski proceeds with his presentation. The Redevelopment Powers Law requires that before you create a TAD, you have a public hearing, which is what you're doing right now. Previously, when the City of East Point has created TADs, it is voted on the redevelopment plan to approve the redevelopment plan the same day, at the same meeting that the public hearing has been held. That is not the process we're following this time. We are talking about a vote at a separate meeting which is scheduled for the 15th. The Redevelopment Powers Law specifies what your options are at the meeting on the 15th. It says, at such meeting, the redevelopment plan shall be approved as submitted, amended and approved, or rejected and returned to the redevelopment agency for consideration. Any redevelopment plan rejected by the local legislative body shall be returned to the redevelopment agency and shall be subject to the public hearing requirements of subsection B of this code, section if again submitted to the local legislative body for approval, either in the same or amended form. So you have 3 options next Monday. You can approve the plan as submitted, amend it at that time, or reject it and send it back. But you have this deadline of December 31 of this year to capture the base as it exists this year. Any growth in the digest that occurs after December 31 will not be included. Will not be included in the base. Will be included in the base for a TAD that would be set for next year, but would be part of the increment if the TAD is created December 31.
Thank you, Attorney
Hopefully that's
Johnson. Could you also, we're not at crunch. Go ahead with your presentation. I'll jot it down for later.
All right. So one thing I'll just point out too is that you see on this cover, City of East Point, Fulton County School District. We do that because we assume that you're going to be asking at some point for Fulton County and the Fulton County School District to participate in your TAD, to put their millage rate into the TADs. There are TADs that work just fine without the county and the school district participation, but they pretty much, you can do much smaller things with your TAD when you don't have their millage. It doesn't mean you can't do anything, and you can keep trying for their participation for many years down the road if you want to. But so now we have TAD District number 4, that is the Sylvan Oakley TAD as we're presenting it. And again, it's similar in that it's support the modernization of industrial space into much different users, and potentially really look at integrating more mixed use projects into the area that feature a wider mix of opportunity. That's all good real estate speak, planners speak for saying, some redevelopment of these old parcels into something modern and new. And so again, this was the the idea, the TAD takes in a lot of these larger parcels. Again, these larger industrial buildings often get one, especially now when they're not made of brick, right? The old cool ones made of brick, or they got value for years to come because we love that stuff. This is pretty much not really, lovable buildings. So when they go dark and empty, you want to have a tool to try to do something about it, because not only are they ugly, they also are a drain on your property taxes, right? And so this allows you to kind of think forward about, okay, if and when these things are vacant, how do we address it? This gives you a tool to do that. That's the idea. And so again, when we make the case for why a TAD is legal here, if you will, we see this as a deteriorating area because not only because of just what I said, and the data shows us that these are already old buildings for the most part. All those red dots are buildings that are older than 40 years old, right? So the biggest one there in the middle is not that old yet, but it's getting there, and most of the other stuff is old already. So that's the idea. They're largely vacant. Now, because these are bigger parcels, the value is actually higher here overall, a little bit higher. Remember the last one was like 70 something million. This one is almost 120 million in terms of the current base value. And again, it's because these are, fairly expensive buildings. They're big, but they're deteriorating. And this is sort of an opportunity to have a tool in place to redevelop some of these old things. Now, again, we don't know what the private market is really actually going to do here. This is just us, taking a shot at maybe this is what it looks like over time. If you redevelop some of the old industrial buildings into retail and office and housing instead, it is a planner's best guess, and that's what the law requires. None of this is set in stone by any means. This is just giving you an idea of maybe something like this could work, but the law requires that you do this kind of forecasting and planning. But ultimately, there's, again, plenty of, words in the plan, but this really gives you an idea of kind of the general idea of what this plan is all about. So I'll kind of leave it there and happy to answer any questions on it.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak in favor of the proposed redevelopment plan for East Point Tax Allocation District Number 4, Sylvan Oakley, also referred to as East Point Innovation TAD North? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor? It's a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposed redevelopment plan? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the proposed redevelopment plan? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the proposed redevelopment plan? Anyone in opposition? Any discussion or comments from council? Any discussion or comments from council on this tax allocation district? I don't see anyone in. Attorney Johnson, you mentioned at the opening that the importance of approving by December 31st is to lock in the tax base so the increment can be decided. Also, if a decision is made after December 31st, would these TADs be an economic development tool in 2026?
No. So, correct, no, they would not. So the ability to lock in the base, well, you will not have a TAD at any time until, if you create one on January 2nd of 2026, the TAD would take effect at December 31 of 2026. So you would lose a whole year of effectiveness.
Would it take effect on December 31, or the increment will be locked in on December 31 of 2026, and it would be able to be an economic development tool in 2027?
Correct.
Okay.
You would lose a whole year of effectiveness.
City Manager Jones?
Yes, ma'am.
I
Oh,
saw
it's
I saw you on my queue.
Oh,
No?
Nope.
No worries. Mr. Koski, you mentioned earlier that the TAD South Willingham corridor, TAD, was based on the Willingham LCI study and the economic development plan, but there wasn't a separate, plan of such for North. But when the economic development plan, strategic economic development plan was updated, were these industrial districts looked at as a part of that plan?
They were. There were specific parcels identified as likely opportunities based on the conversations that were had. There were no specific opportunities other than the Owens, Illinois site that was mentioned as imminent, if you will, like ready to go, a developer talking about it, but, these areas were talked about, which is why you see a couple parcels in each area that were identified in the Economic Development Strategic Plan. Again, to notify that these are areas that have parcels that could be redeveloped.
And the properties in TAD North or Sylvan Oakley that were identified in the Strategic Economic Development Plan, would this TAD support the ideas or what was shared in that Strategic Economic Development Plan around the sites identified in this area?
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Hey, thanks again. Quick question. So what if we don't use 100% of our ability to use our TADs?
Yeah. So most cities don't have TADs that go up to 10%. The city of Atlanta is a very unique bird in the TAD world. They're way over 10%, but that's not even worth discussing right now. Most TADs and most cities in Georgia are, lower than 10%. There are some that are basically maxed out, but either way, you're using it. It's all about what you can do in the future. If you're at 10%, it just means you can't create another one, but you've got room to create some.
So even with that, are we saying we have to make any changes or amendments to our current plans before the 31st, or we have to vote on it, or?
Yeah, the idea is that potentially on next Monday, you'll have a resolution to vote on each of these plans. If you want to have these two TAD plans as discussed tonight with those parcels and those boundaries, you'll have an opportunity to vote on these plans separately on next Monday.
So I guess any changes will have to go before the public hearing?
Well, if I can have a list of changes, I can say those out loud before the vote, and I can have an updated plan in your hands before the vote. If there's drastic changes, the main thing is changes in parcels in the boundary. Everything else that can be cleaned up between now and the vote is typically how it works. But because the main thing you're doing with these plans are setting the boundaries of the plan, of the TAD, and what parcels go in. So that would be a pretty drastic change. If there's typos that we find, we can clean those up before you vote on it. But you'll have the final version of the plan that you're voting on before you vote on it. And any drastic changes will require some additional discussion before you vote on it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Ziegler?
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. So knowing that the North doesn't have like an LCI plan, are we able to do the TAD first and then do an LCI plan later?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, I'm just using LCI because Willingham has it. I would say it would be great if it was an LCI plan, but I would say just some sort of larger planning vision for the area that sort of guides. To me, at this point, if you've already got the TAD, what you would be doing is mostly telling the the private sector, hey, here's an area that we've already got a TAD for, and now here's what we would like to see. And then that becomes almost like marketing to bring in the developer to do the redevelopment. So it usually, you do the master plan and you say, oh, we need implementation tools, so let's have a TAD. That's what's happening in Willingham. It's just you could do it kind of the reverse, but you end up in the same spot.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councilmember Freeland.
Councilmember Ziegler's question just sort of reversed the intent of what I was going to ask. So in the north, in the south, we clearly have the Owens, Illinois, which is potentially sort of this driver project, time sensitive, so on. On the north, it's a little less defined. So my question was going to be, is there no harm, no foul if we decided to hold off on the north and, I don't know, sort of develop an LCI or
Yes.
whatever?
Right.
But your answer suggests that maybe it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, that having a TAD here could be its own sort of starter.
It could be. Some cities have done that. Many cities have done that. But I would say the ones that have been successful at it have done kind of what Councilmember Ziegler was saying, is that you do something else. Just by having a TAD doesn't mean that any redevelopment is going to happen.
Right.
The TAD is a tool. To get some redevelopment done, usually you got to have a private sector partner. You could do this on your own if you had other visions to somehow do redevelopment without a private sector partner, but that's pretty much what these are doing. So you just have to kind of, if you have a TAD, you got to market it, if you will, and I'm using air quotes about that, but you've got to market it.
Right, so
Add to that, to the answer. So the two things that could happen in 2026 that could create problems. One is that you have so much growth in values in the TAD that you exceed your 10% and you can't create a new TAD for an area that hasn't been created in a TAD before. The other is this, that if there's growth in 2026, the revenue that is produced by that growth will not be available to encourage development. It will not go into the special fund for the TAD, it will just go into the general fund of the city. So those are the two things that could happen if you delay.
right, no, understood. And I'm much clearer on that on the south TAD. It's just my question is more on the north. But Mr. Kosky, so you would not say that having a TAD for this north plot of land is putting the cart before the horse just because we don't have as much of a specific vision for it?
I mean, it wouldn't be unusual, is the way I would say it. But I would say that if I had to choose one, I would choose the way you're doing it on Willingham. Do the master plan first and decide you need a TAD, then put in a TAD. But again, I would bet 50% of the similar TADs in Georgia are, sort of putting the tool in place and now let's go make it work. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but what you're putting in play here is, again, the growth. You're still getting you're not putting a lot in play by having this Sylvan Oakley TAD, because you're still collecting the base value even though you've got it in a TAD. So it's, and there's plenty of precedent if this body decides anytime down the road that you don't like these TADs, as long as you haven't made any obligations to them, as long as you haven't made any promises, any payouts, you can get rid of them as fast as you create them, just with a resolution and a vote.
Thank you.
Along those same lines, could it be amended to take some parcels out and keep parcels in, or do you have to get rid of it in its entirety?
If there's no obligations against it, it gives you more options. But when you move parcels in and out, you're basically, the law is pretty clear that you have to reset the base. So even if you change one parcel in or out on a TAD you've already created, you're basically creating a new TAD.
Okay, and then, I guess a benefit, if there is a desire to develop in the Sylvan Oakley area, in 2026, this would be a economic development tool that could be used to support development in the area. If there's nothing, no harm, no foul, but if something comes up and it's not in place, there wouldn't be an economic development tool in place to help with infrastructure costs or help make development projects work. And from a marketing perspective, if it's approved, there's also saying that, as you said earlier, this is an area that we want to spur development in, to incentivize development in. This tool is already available, and so that might actually help attract the right type of development. In addition to doing the plan later, I think that, the whole conversation of going down to 166, when we had a discussion initially about it, I think it was about Award B council members around. I think Councilmember Ziegler asked about what could we do down on 166. There's a lot of concern about the amount of industrial properties in that area, and the ability to incentivize the type of development that we might want to see in that area, or to attract people to look at that area as something other than industrial, right? Or be able to be willing to take a chance on developing something different in this area than the industrial that's been there for decades, right? And so I think around helping with marketing that this area is not, we don't want the area to continue to be this industrial, right? We like to incentivize other uses and developments within the area. We'll give the tool and make it be an available tool in 2026 versus later, sometime later. You mentioned, that's what I wanted to talk. You mentioned earlier, Attorney Johnson, that we could either approve, amend and approve, or reject, right? And when you said amend and approve, that's amend and approve the redevelopment plan, which could be the language, but what's more important is the boundaries, correct?
Correct.
Questions or discussions on?
I'll just say, last thing, I promise. In the back of each plan, per the law, there is a list of all the parcels and the parcel numbers and the names and the value, I think, yes. So that, if you have any questions, is this in, is this out? If you see it on here, it's in. If you don't see it on here, it's out. That, again, each plan has its own list of parcels. So if you want to talk specific parcels and you want to get one in or out next Monday, we can do an amendment, we can talk about parcels. So, we can do this any way you want. We're on a fast track, so we're sort of, trying to be as accommodating as possible, but it is a short amount of time, so.
Thank you. And then let me ask the same question of council as it relates to name. It's been referred to as East Point Innovation TAD North. TAD North tonight is proposed as Tax Allocation District 4, Sylvan Oakley. Does anyone have any comments or suggestions around the name in the event there's a desire to move this forward? Anybody object to the name of, can you go back for me? I think, I wrote it down. I think it's East Point Tax Allocation District number 4, Sylvan Oakley. Anyone? Cause heartburn to anyone? She said, she was yawning. Okay, all right, so I think names are fine, and then council will just decide whether one or both move forward. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. The agenda indicates executive session, but I don't think we have any executive sessions around this executive session items regarding this TAD. I'm looking over at the Attorney Johnson, no legal matter tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn the special call meeting? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Let's take a 5-minute bio break. Let's start the work session at 7:20. 7:13.